Okay, everybody, so on today's show, I'm picking up kind of, we had a podcast where I had a technical difficulty. I recorded earlier last week, and it was with our homeboy, Robert VW Kid, and he's from Huntington Park, California. He's known for being in the VW scene for quite a while. I mean, he started way back in the late 70s, and you might know him today because he's got the 51 Max Hoffman split, which is like the most unrestored, oldest Beetle that's around, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd like to welcome, and we get his intro over again, Robert, VW Kid, back to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here and being interviewed
So
for the podcast.
We always start the podcast the same way, and we lost it with a technical difficulty last time. What's your VW story, and how did you get into Volkswagen?
Okay, so it goes way back. Around 1977, I was 11 years old, 12 years old, and I grew up in a city called Huntington Park, and there's a city right next to it, north of it, called City of Bell. And there was a shop called Royal Buggy House, and that was run by Steve Timms, who I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with as the racer, his son Greg. I remember Greg when he was a little kid at the shop. But I didn't know what it was at the time, but I used to go down Florence where his shop was with my mom and dad, because I didn't drive. I was like 10, 11 years old. And there was a beautiful brown race car. All I knew was a race car because it had a bunch of stickers on it and had wheelie bars on it. And it was just intriguing to me. And that later on, I would find out that's the Mean Machine Ghia. That was Steve Timms' Mean Machine Ghia. So that piqued my first interest and love for Volkswagens, right?
Now, and your family, comes from like a lowrider background.
Yes. My family, I don't know, it's from the Duke's Car Club, the Relas family. So my whole life, I had lowrider influence. I was going to the LA Super Shows, all the lowrider car shows early on.
Right.
Cruising Whittier Boulevard with my older sisters when I was 11, 12, 13 years old in the back seat. So my whole influence was lowriders. My neighborhood at the time was all lowriding. Clubs like the Imperials, the Dukes, the Old Memories, Brown Breed, the Majestics. Those are the car clubs that were in my South Central, Southeast neighborhood. So my whole influence was lowriders. That being said, how I got into Volkswagens was my older cousin who lived next door to me. She was going out with a guy that was a sergeant of arms of a Cal Look club from San Gabriel Valley called Proud Californians.
Yeah.
And his name was Ronnie, really good guy. That was the first time I actually sat and drove in a Bug. He had a beautiful 65 dark gray Cal Look, deep chrome, one-piece windows, center lines, and it was fairly fast. I believe he had an 1835 in it.
Yeah.
So that got me excited as far as the performance aspect. So I knew right then I wanted a Volkswagen, but really what really sealed the deal is I was hanging around with the youngest Relas brother, Rene, and all these guys, I consider myself like the second generation of my syndicate or club called the Bugs Buddies, who I consider we were the first ones doing the all original cars lowered on alloys with accessories that people call today Resto Cal.
Yeah. But which we know is really it's Cal style.
Yeah, like Cal style. We call it Cal style. Outsiders call it Resto Cal. Insiders call it Cal style or LA style. For a while there, it was called vintage style because we were getting all our parts from Bob Scott, the oldest.
Vintage parts.
Yeah,
right?
Vintage Parts Inc. in Glendale. They were not going back to 1972, and they were right in our neighborhood, right near Dodger Stadium. So it was kind of a natural thing that we were getting all our parts from there. And this all ties back to the lowrider influence because the lowriders like the Imperials and all these clubs, they were taking Impalas, original Impalas, and putting accessories and all original slammed and lowered. So that was our influence seeing them, right? So in my neighborhood, though, in the late 70s, if you had a lowrider, the law enforcement would typically pull you over and jam you.
Hassled by the cops all the time.
Us on our bicycles, we would see the guys all sitting on the curb with the trunk and hood open and the doors open. So we associated bad connotations with that. So we didn't grow up with a lot of money. We grew up in the neighborhood. So Volkswagens are a natural thing to buy, an economical car to buy, and with our lowrider influence, we just went for it. We figured out how to lower them extremely low with the torsion bars removing, like we didn't have money for selected drop and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
just re-indexed.
You just
the
had to
rear.
get to it. Yeah.
We just took the torsion bars out, cut the stops off, and put 135 Michelin's or 125 or temp tires on smoothies, and around, well, Rene had his first set of Fuchs in 1980, but the consensus was about 1982. Everybody started running alloys. I had my first set in early on in 1982 on my '66 Pagani sunroof.
And now, is that your first bug that you got?
Yeah, that was my first bug. That's a cool story because in high school, I was supposed to go stay in my neighborhood and go to Salesian High School, which is in Boyle Heights. But at the time, my parents wanted me to go to a school called St. John Bosco, which is completely opposite direction in Bellflower. That
Really?
was a good. At the time, I was like, man, it was a culture shock for me, really. But at the time, I got to make good friends with a lot of the DKK guys, the Kleiner Kampwagen car club guys. There were a lot of them there at that school. Edwin Pee-wee with his My Bad KG, the Lucero brothers, Jimmy and Jeff. They had their cars, and it opened me up to like interacting with the Orange County side, all the Caldic guys, and I would roll up in my white Pagani 66 sunroof, all slammed, crazy slammed, with the alloys, with the pop-out windows, convertible deck, like, what you would see now. And in Jess, they used to clown my car. They used to call it an East LA Beaner bug.
And but what's funny is, like, we were talking about that style earlier, and that style, if you look at it, I think GFK kind of put on the map, like the GFK style,
for sure,
right?
For sure.
But that style, if you look at it, it's a natural progression of guys with a Chicano background and that are into the lowriders, but they want to get bugs. It's the same type of, it's the same type of style. You're talking all OG accessories. The car is mostly stock, and then lowered with wheels and tires on it.
Yeah, for sure. Like GFK, man, they took the LA style to a whole nother level. They perfected it. Their cars are so beautiful and perfect.
And they really branded it, because you go to a car show and they were tight, bro. Like all 10, 12 cars in a row, all accessories and racks and and windscreens and like
even
every
today,
rare accessory.
Even today at this show we're recording at, you look at their lineup, it's just perfect.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I always said, like if I would have stayed in the scene, because life happens. I was in the scene from 78 to like 1989. But then I got married, started raising a family, getting into my career. But I truly believe if I would have stayed in the scene, I would be right there with the GFK, because it's just a natural thing
and
for me.
Ruben came from Bugs Buddies.
Yeah. Ruben was there with us, with Eddie Boy and Adam Chacon and Bill Nagura and Larry and his brother and all those guys from La Puente. And me and Rene were like the crew that was from South Central, Southeast LA, and Bill hung around with us, and unfortunately Bill, who's I consider one of the main guys, he's in San Quentin now on death row. Unfortunately, he committed something, and he hasn't been out for 30 years. But I consider him one of the main guys that started our LA style. And
he's known right now for artwork and stuff that he does.
Yes, he's really. If you look at William Nagura, he's a well-known prison artist. He sells all over the world. He's had showings in Europe. He's been in Forbes magazine, all the major magazines. He's written 4 books. He's had a college education in there. He lectures via phone to universities, and he was a Volkswagen guy, man. Me and him, the last car he built was a 62 black with a white top convertible, and that was in the 1982 issue of Lowrider magazine.
Yeah.
But me and him were the last one to build that car, and then of course he went away. But unfortunately back then, us being young kids, I know a lot better now, and I'm not that person anymore, but growing up in the neighborhood, it was just normal. That's what you did.
I think it's kind of something that you go through like in your early teens, and the neighborhood's a little rough, and you got to come up how you got to come up until you wise up, right?
Yeah, until wise up.
Yeah. And so I think it's just one of those natural progressions for lower socioeconomic people that kind of grow up in those areas. Because I know I went through it. My family was a broken family, divorce, and kind of did that. And you get old enough, and most of us wise up, some of us don't. We kind of trail off the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But that whole era and that whole style, like even with your Bug, I mean, you got pictures of your '66 convertible deck lid, the Porsche Alloys, all that stuff,
pop-out windows.
and pop-out windows, and that's from the early
Well, 82.
That's from 1982.
Yeah. So going back to like I got out of the scene, I still kept my finger in it, and what got me peaked again was I was at a show. I was just out in a show, and I saw Rich 50's split window.
Right.
He had just pulled it out, and I just saw it, man. And I go, man, I fell in love. And I said, you know what? I didn't even know anything. And I said, you know what? I bet you that's a LA style or Chicano owns that car.
Yeah.
I said that because I could just tell by the style, just the way it was built. And sure enough, got to meet Rich and
it kind of got you going. He said,
got me
hey, go
going.
on the Samba. Go on the Samba.
Yeah. And then I started meeting everybody. But here's the crazy thing.
Robert's got to go and ruin everybody's world on the Samba, right?
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing is that when I came back to the scene, I didn't think I made an impact at all. I had my VW Kid plates early on, but when I came back to the scene, people still remembered me and my cars. It's like I never left.
Yeah.
What's crazy? You go, oh, VW Kid. I remember your car on Whittier Boulevard in Legion Park. Yeah, the white car with the 48s and the motor and this and that and the alloys.
And there's a lot of people talking about history on the forum.
Yeah,
on the forums, it would be like, oh, how did this start? And here's some pictures, and here's how this.
Yeah, late 80s, 90s thing. And I go, really? We were doing that early on. We were doing it in 79, 80, 81, 82. And so I went and found all my pictures. I had the few pictures I had. Girlfriends have taken pictures. It's not like we were going around taking pictures back then, right? We had a box little throwaway camera maybe, and you take pictures, and 8 months later you get them developed.
Yeah,
right?
what do they say? If you knew at the time you were making history, you'd have paid more attention.
Exactly. And honestly, we weren't building the cars to show them at car shows or anything. We were building them to get chicks.
Just your drivers.
Cruise the boulevard.
Chicks. Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
So when I came back in the scene, and I got in the Samba thread, and I said, hey, wait a minute, man. That was a total Lowrider Influence. It wasn't an offshoot of the California look or the Orange County look. No, yes, the DKK guys had some cars with moldings, but ours, it was the spirit of it. It was a Lowrider Influence car, with the accessories, the Venetian. I mean, literally, the first time I saw Venetian blinds on an oval window was with Renee. His brothers, they weren't even for a Volkswagen. He made them. He cut them to put them on a Volkswagen.
Cut them from another car?
This was in 1981.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was the first time I saw Venetian blinds.
Yeah, you look.
So that, and then when I came back in, I dropped all my pictures, and people were like, wait a minute, no way, those aren't real pictures. And I had to turn them around and see the stamp on the back, that developed,
Because sometimes part of that history, I think we all go through that, right? We're all in the Volkswagens, then life happens. We all say life happens. Get married, a girlfriend, or whatever, and you start to pull out of the scene. You got to grow up a little bit, and then after you get settled in, you get like, hey, maybe I'm gonna get another Volkswagen, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that. But we all kind of take a little step back, and this is now, luckily now with the internet and all this stuff, a lot of that stuff's getting documented.
Yes.
But now before that, you're talking, unless you had pictures, no one's going to believe it.
And I'm really grateful that I have those pictures because I had a lot more. Now, I was in the scene heavy because I worked at the retail parts stores. I worked for Jerry's VW Heaven. I worked for Gary Proctor at Unique Performance in North Long Beach. And I even remember Pip coming into the shop when he was young, just starting out,
Yeah.
And I used to park my black 58 and my black 59 LA style, Chicano style slammed on either original 5-spoke MPs or 901 Fuchs. And they were different. At the time, the cars were really different.
Well, yeah, they weren't built like today. Today, it's like these guys drive show stunners. Like the cars just got to keep pushing up and up and up and up. And now it's like, it's one of those things where these guys are driving them and having them super clean and driving them back. Then, like you said, our goal was just to build car to get girls, right? I'm gonna go cruise this car down the boulevard, have some girls check me out. You know what I mean? Like I got something that sets me off a little bit. Yeah. But it wasn't like, it was usually stock motors that were real reliable. So you just get in, you never even touched the motor, right? Just kind of left it in there. It was all about the outside appearance, chrome wheels, accessories, roof rack, all that stuff, and just like cruising. So and then it, but back then it was like, and then it moved into the sound systems, and you started getting sound systems, and you know what I mean?
Cars, because our culture, the teen culture, involved the mobile DJs. Late 70s, the bands are transitioning out, and then the mobile DJs are coming in to play. So we were having house parties, backyard parties, barbecues, and somehow the LA scene, all the LA Cal-style cars, and the mobile DJ scene went hand in hand. In fact, a lot of the mobile DJs, like Victor Aliman, there were also Volkswagen guys. And he's Black Tie, well-known, Audio Climax. If you know the LA scene, those are well-known mobile DJs back in the day. Those are the pioneers. So it went hand in hand,
Yeah, it's just it's definitely something that it laid its mark on the scene. It kind of established a flow, and a lot of younger kids picked up on it and then made it better. And like with any other hobby, see, people pick up where someone left off, and they just keep raising the bar, man.
GFK is the refinement of it.
No,
of it, man.
100%. We've been chasing out
you know?
Ruben to try to get the GFK history on a podcast. But no, man, we got caught up to where the rest of the podcast takes over, and I appreciate you coming in and us connecting today, and appreciate it, brother.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
I'm glad.
Later.